I'm no good at taking good advice, and I'm self-careless, so don't tell me twice that lately I've been so stuck in my head that I forget just about everything my therapist said. Maybe I'm self-helpless.
Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Helpless. I'm Delanie Fischer, and today I'm chatting with Karen Salmansohn, who is a behavioral change expert, best-selling author with over 2 million books sold, Oprah and Psychology Today columnist, and we are talking about the insights from her latest book called You're to Die For Life. There are so many hot tips and fun exercises in this book. Many of you know I'm a big fan of using mortality awareness to make decisions. Basically, I think about death multiple times a day, every day, and that can be both motivating and terrifying. I find it more on the motivating side. I know some people might not like to think about that stuff, but Karen shares how we can really use this kind of awareness to our benefit, in order to live a meaningful life, to avoid the top regrets of the dying, and to have more fun more often. So she's sharing some of her favorite hacks, like the greater than sign, which is something you can use multiple times a day, the marble jar, which is a beautiful visual and activity that you can do every month, and also why identity based statements are really the foundation of significant change. She mixes neuroscience, psychology, philosophy, and I really appreciate that she also offers up some deeply personal stories that shifted her own perspective as well. Karen and I also connected on our love of wordplay, which was especially enjoyable for me. So you're about to hear all kinds of fun names for these exercises, everything from how to be good in deathbed to an end of life plan that she calls Over My Dead Body. We've all heard about near death experiences, but she coined something called a near life experience. Just I love all that stuff as somebody who named this podcast Self-Helpless. So, and having co-authored a novelty recipe book called Mocktails, spelled Mocktales, all about literary themed mocktail recipes like Huckleberry Fizz, Oliver Lemon Twist, Moby Sip, you get it. Anyway, this was just absolutely my jam, hearing all the fun names for stuff. Little fun fact, Karen's work is beloved by so many different celebrities, but I thought it was funny that Eminem loved her book so much that he actually put it in one of his music videos. So anyway, here is my conversation with Karen Salmansohn. You mentioned in your book that you found a letter from your dad after he passed away, or a letter in his drawer, and it was
Yeah,
a major synchronicity for you. Could you share a little bit about that moment?
sure. Because my dad is one of the many reasons why I wrote this book.
Wow.
Um, well, this happened. He passed away about 20 years ago, and he had not been doing well. But I didn't know that this was going to be the day. And I got to the hospital first, and my mother came in, and she said, "Karen, I found this envelope in Dad's bureau." And it's from you, addressed to him like you were in college. So I was curious to see what my dad had saved. I
Yeah.
opened it up and I had clipped some pages from a book, and then included a note, and I wanted him to read it. And it was so weirdly synchronicitous to read this on the day that he passes, because it's a reminder of, it's actually really beautiful to read. Whenever I know somebody has had a relative or friend pass, I send them, I tell them about this.
Mhm.
Um, and it also helps you to heal yourself when somebody passes. So here's what it is. I memorized it ish
Wow.
because over the years I lost it sadly somehow, and I don't even know what book it's from. But here's how it goes. Um, Everything that is not given is lost. And then in the book, I remember it repeated again, and it said, read those words again, really take them in. Everything that is not given is lost. This is a potent wake up call. Every thought, every feeling, every skill, every passion is lost unless you share it with others.
Mm.
But if you give of yourself fully, your heart, your passions, your beliefs, I forgot what it said, then you will pass on a lot to them. And then they will pass it on to whoever they encounter, who will pass it on to whoever they encounter, who will pass it on to whoever they encounter, which brings up the metaphor of a pebble tossed into a pond. And the more you give of yourself, the greater ripples you leave behind. And viewed this way, what kind of ripples do you want to leave behind? So beautiful. It was written better than that. Um, but it reminded me to think about what my dad's ripples were with me, and to think about how I wanted to live fully and deeply and touch people and pass things, that
Yeah.
everybody, that you pass on your ripples to somebody, but then it's an infinite progression of ripples, who then pass it on, and then pass it on. And a couple days after I read it and then gave his eulogy and spoke it, I was really thinking about his ripples, and I at first thought of like the most obvious ones, which my dad was kind, but there was one that I was like, oh, that ripple too, which is my dad was a financial advisor. He was a stockbroker. And
Mm.
so I didn't think his career was like mine, but he was a contrarian. If everybody was zigging, he was zagging. Like when the market crashed, he's like, yay, everything's on sale. And I thought, okay, we have very different careers, but I'm a contrarian. Like here I am writing a book about death, which my
Right.
my agent told me don't do, because people
Mm.
don't want to talk about death. It's like one
Right.
of the last taboo topics, but I think it's so important. I'm like, I'm doing it.
That letter that you had given to your dad at some point, almost like he was giving it back to you when you really
Yes,
needed it most. Those moments are so
it's
strange, right? And
so
I'm
strange.
I'm curious now that you are living your to die for life, right? You've gone through all the things that you're sharing with other people. Do you find that you experience more synchronistic moments like that because you feel more in tune to what you actually want to be doing?
Yeah, it's funny. The more I believe in them, the more I notice them. It's like somebody that says, like, look for purple cars, you'll notice them or whatever.
Right. Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So when
Exactly.
I'm in that zone, but I say, and I say it in the book too, that I'm not entirely woo-woo. I'm like one woo. I'm like,
Yes.
but I've had some weird woo-woo things with my dad. Like, for example, he died on his death was my wake up call that I really needed to stop putting off starting a family till someday. And I
Mm.
have his death to thank for my son's birth. But what's weird is my son was born August 27th, and my dad had passed away August 27th, 4 years before. So
Oh my gosh, I just got chills.
I'm like, thanks, Dad. You know, but I'm more psychological that's and philosophical than I am. But I'm open to it. And as I get old,
Yeah.
I kind of get more and more open and awake, and I notice it when it happens.
I love the I'm one woo. I think that is so good, and I feel very similarly. Like I need a mix of things. I need some I need some research to back things up, but I do look around thinking, what is this place? I mean, this is pretty magical, and how can people be so sure it's this or it's that or whatever? And I'm just kind of open to the mystery of it all. So you mentioned that your dad's passing was this really big wake up call for you, and one of the exercises in your book is writing your own eulogy or, even your headstone, kind of like a log line
Yeah.
version. So when you did that for yourself, what were the biggest gaps that you noticed in how you wanted to be living versus how you actually, where you mentioned you wanted to have a child, anything
Yes.
else that was going on?
Yeah. Well, the family thing was the big part. I kept putting
Yeah.
that off. I was in what I call beast mode, which a lot of us are, like working too
Yeah.
much. It's actually one of the top regrets of the dying is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And
Right.
and sometimes that's invisible when you kind of like love even what you do. But I was definitely too much in work mode. So it
Mm.
wasn't just it was okay, I want to put more time into having a family, but it was also I don't want to be working this hard. I want to have more balance in my life. And I write
Yeah.
about this in the book too, about the difference between beast mode and best mode. And
Mhm.
I think we are too much worshiping productivity in this world of ours. And which is why um, I actually make fun of to-do lists in my book a little bit. I say
Yes.
they have
Love
they,
that.
they have a fatal flaw. To-do lists worship productivity, and you could do everything on your to-do list, get to the end of your life, and feel like you wasted your life, because the point of life is not to have the most productive life, it's to have a meaningful life. And to-do lists don't prioritize meaning, which is why I write about this in Your To Die for Life, that I have a to die list that I write every day, which is sort of
Yes.
like a to do what matters most list, where I write down things that I know have meaning and purpose and value and love and connection and all of that.
By the way, I love all of your clever wordplay so much in your writing. People who have been tuning into this podcast while know that that is something that I really enjoy. I mean, you're on a show called Self-Helpless right now for a reason. Everything I do has to have some kind of clever title or name. It becomes memorable in the reader's brain. Like, I'm not going to forget about the to-die list where, I might forget about something that maybe is a similar concept somewhere, but it just has a boring name. And I love that about you. So when you started to do these exercises for yourself, how did you actually implement them into your day-to-day life? What steps did you actually take to kind of start pivoting away from the beast mode mindset?
Well, it helps that I am a very psychological person with a lot of research, and I love research, and I'm kind of a research geek. And so over the years, I've become a behavioral change expert because of my research. I've written a lot of books on behavioral change.
Yeah.
So, um, and I was researching a lot about mortality awareness, and then when I wrote my eulogy, I looked at it and it included the life that I wanted with, more time for meaningful relationships, more time for meaningful experiences. And I looked at where I was, current me versus aspirational eulogy me, and I did see a gap. And then I realized I was reading a lot of Stoicism and stuff about Aristotle, who I love.
Mhm.
And Aristotle said that you don't know if you've lived a good life until you're on your deathbed. And
Mm.
also says that you should begin every project with the ends in mind, everything from the tiny to like a bake sale to the large, like that gigantic project called your life. And think about what you want the end goal for that to be. So he tells you to think about what you want your end goal to be and to think about how you want to feel about your life on your deathbed and
Right.
then reverse engineer it. So that was why I love the idea of a eulogy, writing one. It's like a mission statement, like a plan. But Aristotle went further. Now, I was reading this around the same time, and he said that everybody on this planet has the same end goal for their life, no matter where you're from.
Mm.
Toronto, Timbuktu, Toledo, we all have the same end goal for our lives. And that is to learn lessons that help us to become our best possible selves. And he said, and this is back in his day, but
Yeah.
applies to today too, that the reason why so many people are unhappy is they have the wrong end goal for their lives. They think it's become the wealthiest person on this planet, become the sexiest on this planet, to have the most like podcast downloads on this planet. It's
Yeah.
about things to do with the ego or status, beauty, money, fame, all of that. And Aristotle thought we're here to learn lessons to become our best possible selves. And he considered that education of the soul, which I love that expression.
Yeah.
And the other things that we're doing, they're about like the ego, the body. They're not about your soul, your core self. And so when I thought about this and I wrote my eulogy, I noticed that I had a lot of core values on there. So this is the part where the behavioral change comes in. And this
Mm.
works. There's studies on this. I created what's called identity-based statements based on my core values. And I explain it step by step in the book. So if I'm going fast now, it's in the book. What identity-based statements are. We write that there's belief system that has tons of studies about this, that your identity is the puppet master of your habits and your actions. For
Mm.
example, if your identity is I'm sloppy, then you're going to be sloppy. If your identity is I'm organized, you're going to be organized. If your identity is I'm wealthy, you're going to, do habits of a wealthy person. I'm kind, you're going to do it. But if you think I suck or I can't, that's going to be your identity is your destiny. Who you think you are will determine what you do. So with this in mind, there's been studies. They'd had one study They wanted to see how they could get more voter turnout.
Mm.
So they had one group of people that they just gave like clever taglines and like rah rah go vote. And the other group, they had them identify as voters. And the group where they got them to believe I'm a voter, I'm a voter, I'm a voter, had like 3 times the voter turnout than the people that was just like rah rah go vote.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
if you can link your identity with something, then you're more likely to do it. It's part of the reason why, let's say you've fallen off the cliff of going to the gym and you can't get yourself to go to the gym. It's because you no longer identify as a gym goer. And it's part of the reason why once you get back into the habit of going to the gym, you think, I'm I'm a gym goer, I'm a gym goer. And then you start to get back into it again. What I have people do is I have a whole system based on core values, because that's how you be your best self. And you add those to the following word template, which is I am and so I do. So if there's something you want to do, like that's scary to you, like write a novel, you write I am brave, and so I write my novel. Or and then if you don't do it, there's like cognitive dissonance. So here's a story. Recently, my friend Danielle had a birthday, and she invited me to come to a birthday party. She lives in Connecticut, and I live in New York, and I don't drive anymore, like some stereotype of a New York. My driver's license expired, and I never got it renewed. So my first thought is, how do I get my I guess, well, I guess I'm not going to Danielle's birthday party. Like, I have to admit, that's like what I thought.
Yeah.
Then I reminded myself of my core values. One of my top core values is loving. And I want to identify, I try to be, I think I am loving. So I wrote down, I am loving. And so I find a way to get my tush to connect. And by adding the I am loving core value to it, it's like accountability. I am a loving person. And then if I don't find a way to get to Connecticut, it again creates like this cognitive dissonance. Or you identify with a core value, if you create identity based statements, then you're more likely to do it. So I have a whole system in the book on how to, even though it's a book that's about mortality awareness, has a lot of psychology in it. I explain how to create identity based statements. So you don't just put down, I'm creating a family. You write down, something that's a core value. Like I
Yes.
value love and I'm creating a family. Or if I'm afraid, I am brave, or, something that would be a core value that would help you to do the habit that you might be resistant to doing.
Right. The study with the people who kind of they identified as voters, therefore they showed up versus maybe the people who are just giving the how-tos and they didn't really do it. How I wonder how they got people to identify as I am a voter. Is that getting in touch with why this is important? This is not just some to-do list item that you got to check off. How do you get somebody to tap into why does it even matter in the first place to help them identify with that thing?
I don't know the exact way that they did in that study,
Okay.
but a good way to do it is if you don't yet identify with a core value that you're choosing. In my book and in my life, I have a daily practice, which is I ask myself this question: who do I need to become to get everything I want in my life? Or who do I need to become to start a family? Or who do I need to become to run a marathon? And then I think up the core values with it. So if you brainstorm those core values, and then you really you think at first, well, I don't know, am I organized? Then what I want people to do is think of times. There are always some moments that you were, so you can tap back into that identity again. And if you don't identify with a core value, then you say, the old me wasn't organized, the new me
Mm.
organized, to help it to feel more doable and real to you. Or you link a core value that you already feel to a habit that you're resistant to. So I'll tell you a story. After my son was born, I gained a lot of pregnancy weight, and I kept calling it pregnancy weight. until my son was 2 years old. And then I realized this is not breaking weight. This is I eat too much crappy food weight. But I just couldn't get myself to lose it. I was eating mac and cheese and pizza, anything he was eating. So one day I was on the phone with my publishing house and we were talking about a book. I just got some spec pages of it and it had photos and illustrations that I noticed. The paper was rather thin and I could see the images coming through the other side. So I was talking to the publishing house and saying, I think we need a thicker paper, maybe if it's toothier. And I was like, telling them about the paper I wanted. And I thought to myself, I am a discerning person. I heard myself. And then I thought, it just occurred to me, I'm a discerning person, but I'm not discerning about what I put in my mouth these days. Pop
Mm,
anything. And because I wanted to identify and did identify with the word discerning, I thought that is who I am. That is so me. Like I care about things like, I love interior design and I love, certain, looking for the right outfit or the right jewelry. So I
yeah.
thought, okay, I am a discerning person, and so I will eat healthy. And then every time I came across like the pizza, the goldfish and the mac and cheese, I would think to myself, is this the food choice of a discerning person? And
Yeah.
owning that identity helped me to lose 20 pounds in 3 months.
Oh, wow. It's so interesting, yeah, that you were doing this in other areas of your life and you just applied what you were already doing to a different area. Why do you think that happens? What is going on with that cognitive dissonance, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I believe it's a negative dominant belief. I
Mm,
write about this also in the book because my background again is behavioral change. So even though it's
yeah.
a book about death, there's so much psychology and even some research in it. So I have a story about that. I was in a restroom here in New York and I look over and somebody had scribbled on the bathroom wall, Lynn plus men who don't love her. And I like kind of at first I kind of
Oh,
chuckled. But
yeah.
then because of my background, I thought to myself, there's a famous saying, we repeat what we don't repair.
Ooh, I
And
love that one.
right? It's a good one.
Yeah, that is good.
Lynn had a non repair repeat issue. She had a negative dominant belief and it was programmed into her. And so she was duplicating because that was her identity. Lynn plus men who don't love her. Identity is the puppet master for your habits. Lynn's walking around, her identity is I am a woman who attracts men who don't love me. So whenever there's a negative dominant belief, there's going to be a negative habit that's associated with it. And usually they show up, you have a negative dominant belief when you find yourself saying sentences with always or never. This always happens to me. I never blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And that's a negative dominant belief. Your identity is your trauma.
So interesting. If you're not experiencing a significant loss, like the way that you did with your dad, or maybe you're losing a relationship or you get an illness, how can we start to manufacture the right amount of urgency to where we're not, running around completely dysregulated because we're afraid of death and the unknown, but the right amount to where we start to get into action?
Well, once you start to identify what your core values are, it helps you to figure out your plan for your life. In my book, I help people to write a eulogy because a lot of people doesn't sound like a fun thing. I mean, I admit that. So I have a fill in the blanks template, like a Mad Libs template, and that's where the core values go. Um, as well as other things. So if you don't know, the template helps you to
Mm,
figure out what you want to do with your life. I have a lot of prompts in the book. I'm big on journaling. I have a lot that actually I have something called a life audit in the book where you figure out where the crap and clutter of your life is because a lot of times people have what I call blame excuses. I don't have time to. And that I think is the adult equivalent of saying the dog ate my homework. You do have the time, you're just not prioritizing it, or you have a negative dominant belief. And
mm.
so I help people to drill down with a life audit to figure out where I call them time leaks and happiness leaks. Like, where are you leaking? And then the other thing is I looked at the top regrets of the dying. I interviewed different end of life doulas, and a lot of people have the same common life regrets on their deathbeds.
Yeah.
And then what I did was I did an Aristotle thing, which is I reverse engineered them. And I thought, what do I have to do now to make sure that I don't have those regrets? And
Right.
I realized that there were 7 core values that if you embrace them, then you can ward off the top regrets of the dying, which I could share.
Yeah, I would love to hear them.
I managed to get them all in alphabetical order except for one, but I came up with a little tweak for that one.
So there's gonna be some wordplay. Yes.
So the first one is A for authentic, because a lot of people on their deathbeds wished that they had lived a life more true to themselves, that they
Mm,
hadn't just done what their parents wanted or what society wanted. And so,
right.
make sure that you live a life, to die for a life, by being authentic. E is brave, because people live in their comfort zones, and they're not out there taking risks and having adventures and having meaningful experiences. And that's what gets you to even face some of your own demons. C is for curious, because for many reasons, Aristotle said that to live your best life, you have to learn lessons to grow into your best possible self. So you have to be curious. Why does this always keep happening to me? Like if
Right.
Lynn were my client, Lynn plus men who don't love me. Okay, Lynn, let's get curious. Why do you think? What happened to you in your past? So
Right.
you need to embrace curiosity to grow. Plus, you need to be curious just to have live with more awe and wonder. Why do stars twinkle, or what is, so to live with that kind of awe, curiosity helps. D is discerning. You need that to figure out, how do you find time to do the things that matter? How can you drop some of the things that don't? Where are you wasting time, attention, energy, love? Where are you wasting that? E is the one I had to tweak. I want to get love in there. Meaningful relationships are sort of like the cornerstone of a meaningful life. And so I call it empathic love.
Very clever. I see you, Karen. I see what you're doing.
It's good to be
I
seen.
like it.
And empathic love I thought was even better after I worked an E letter next to it, because sometimes when you hear love, you might think lust or chemistry, or you might just think it's about romance. But empathic love encompasses all love, where we really seek to understand, to relate, to hear, active listening, all of that. F is fun. Oh, and I forgot to mention all the reasons, but each of those related back to a regret of the dying.
Mm,
And F definitely relates back to a regret of the dying. A lot of people on their deathbed said, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I
right.
wish I had allowed more joy into my life. I let myself be happier. So fun is a core value. You have to let some fun in, be playful and go on adventures and all of that. And then G is gratitude, to live with gratitude for where you are now. And as you try to get to new, greater, journeys of your life, to be grateful for what you have, because that's the mindset you need to be in as you go through life. My 7 core values are sort of your starter up kit. A lot of people are not living intentional lives. They're just sort of winging it, which has a certain beauty to it. But there was a Yogi Berra quote, if you don't know where you're going, then chances are you'll get there, whatever. So if
Mm,
you don't live with intention, then you're going to be tossed about, by the fates of life. So who do you need to become to get
mm.
everything you want in your life?
Okay, beautiful. And let's, for where I am right now, I'm excited to kind of deepen the work that I'm doing now because everything is lining up pretty well. I'm sure things will be tweaked along the way, of course. But let's say that maybe I start to notice that I'm not as feeling as fulfilled. Does that mean a core value of mine is changing? Does that mean the way that I bring that value to fruition needs to adapt? What is your experience when things feel like they need a refresher, I guess?
We are always changing. And that's why I even recommend that people keep revisiting your eulogy and keep revisiting what meant most to you, because you are going to keep growing.
I also love that you say the word near life experience versus
Oh,
because we hear about near death experiences, the things that can like really wake people up and inspire change. But what is a near life experience?
yeah. Well, in the beginning of the book, I say, although it's a book about death, I'm not writing it because I had a near death experience. I'm writing because I had near life experience. And I made
Hmm.
that term up.
It's so
Fun
good.
fact, I started off my career in advertising, and I worked at J. Walter Thompson, and they had an agency competition to name Burger King's new breakfast sandwich, and my
Oh my,
name, Sandwich, won.
oh my gosh, that's
I
wild.
named the Sandwich. Everybody who worked with me back at J. Walter Thompson back in the 80s knows Karen Salmansohn named the Sandwich.
Of course you did.
Um,
Wordplay
so
queen.
my favorite name they didn't go for, which was, Whopierre, like Whopper, but with Pierre in it because it
Oh
was
my
a
god.
sandwich. But I like naming things, but I digress. So near life experience. So many people have a near life experience, and it's when you're just not fully present in your life. You're out to dinner with somebody, and it's somebody you love even, but your mind is racing forward, future projecting some worry in the future, or you're ruminating on something from the past, and you're not fully in your life. You're near your life. And that's
Mm,
what a near life experience is. And too many of us are distracted, and there's so much noise in our heads that we're not fully in our lives. And it was my dad's death that woke me up to realizing that I was having a near life experience. I wasn't fully deeply in my life, and that I wanted to do that more and be fully present. Nowadays, there's so much noise out there that we don't give ourselves time a lot to just sit and contemplate. We'll be waiting for a coffee and we'll be on our phone, like, or walking down the
mhm.
street. That used to be a time to walk and think and contemplate, waiting for your coffee, time to we're on the phone so much that we need more time for contemplation.
Yeah, and I think this probably applies, and you may have mentioned it. Like for me, when I picture a near life experience, I almost picture somebody who gets an inkling of something that they might be excited to do. Like, oh, it would be fun to travel to that place or write a book or get on stage for something. And then they talk themselves out of it. They were so close to feeling the aliveness that they're probably craving. Could that also be this near life experience concept?
Yeah, well, that's an identity thing. Like
Mm,
I can't, there's some I can't that they're stuck in that has to do with an identity. Like it could be I'm not worthy. It could I'm not talented enough. Like they have to think of themselves as an adventurous person, get into that, or think of themselves as brave and start to own that core value. Then you kind of go naturally to those choices. Like when I was thinking about the word discerning all the time, I realized that it made me want to be more discerning in other areas, like shopping, spending. Do I really
yeah.
need this? Like, once you really fully identify with something like that, if the more you identify with brave, the more you do brave things. Like, here's an example. Here's an example. I never thought of myself as a technological person at all. And that held me back because the
Mm.
world has gotten much more technological. One day, my son, at that time he was about 7 or 8 or something, very young, and he comes into me and at that point I wanted to start to do online courses, but my identity, that damn identity, was getting in my way. Like, I'm not technological, I can't do it. So my 7-year-old, or whatever he is, 8-year-old son comes into the room and he says, "Mom, will you buy me Adobe Premiere? I want to make movies." And I said to him, "Well, mommy doesn't know Adobe Premiere." And he says, "That's okay. I'll teach myself. Just watch some YouTube videos and teach myself." And I was like looking at him and thinking, I said, "Okay, I'll buy it for you. You can do it month by month." So I bought it for him. He went into his room. A couple of hours later, "Mommy, mommy, look what I made." I go running into the room, and he's made this amazing video with flying fonts and sound effects. And I'm like, "You did that?" "Yes." I thought, I'm going to teach myself how to make online courses. I taught myself that. And then my identity shifted and I got an air fryer. I taught myself the air fryer. Then every time there's something that's technological now, I tell myself, remember I said, even if you don't think you're that thing, like if you don't think you're organized, remind yourself of something. I think to myself, I'm technological. I taught myself online courses, and then I am technological. I can teach myself, how to do a lawnmower or how to, how to put together a
Right.
car even, you go back to it and you own it. And that's why sometimes people go even healthy on a health roll. You start going to the gym, then you clean up your diet, then you start to learn other sports because your identity starts to be I'm a healthy person. And that core value starts to spread into other areas of your life, especially when you're intentional, especially when you intentionally think, I am technological. I can do this. I am
Yeah.
healthy. I can try a new sport. I am athletic. I can learn, that's the power of identity based statements.
Yes, and I love that your son was like this reminder, almost like a what a great example of he didn't have those same limitations that we put on ourselves as an adult and kind of snapped you out of something, right? Kids can do that for us. They can remind
Yeah.
us of our purest origin of who we are. This reminds me of the way that I started kind of changing things in my own life is I found decluttering and minimalism, which I know that you talk about in your book, another love of my life, decluttering. But I noticed that once I started applying those things to my stuff, it's all about removing excess so you can do more of what you enjoy when you really get to the
Yeah.
root of it. I started applying it to my stuff and then it naturally kind of started going in other directions in my life. I started applying it to what was on my schedule and what kind of relationships I was having and why do I have all these jobs I don't like? What if I only had a couple jobs that I do like, right? And it is interesting how if you focus on that one area and that one thing, how it can naturally just kind of integrate into these other areas, and that reminds me of one of my favorite tips from your book is the greater than sign. It is
Ah,
simple, it is fun, it's visual. We'll have you explain it, but let's say that somebody is torn between maybe 2 different life paths and they're
mm,
saying, they're thinking, "Well, part of me wants to live in this other country, but part of me is also very happy living with my partner and their work keeps them in this location." Is that where we can implement the greater than sign of which direction we might want to go and anything that you want to say about that concept?
it could be used for large things. I never
Okay.
actually, quite frankly, I never used it for something large. So thank you for having me think about it in that way.
Sure.
But I use it as a speed bump because we're running around, we're racing around, we're so busy all the time that we do impulsive things. We react instead of choose. And so I want people to slow down so they're making choices in their lives from a place of thoughtfulness, and what the greater than sign does. Well, first of all, for everybody that like they haven't thought about what a greater sign is for years, it's a math thing and it looks like a little sideways triangle without the bottom, a bottomless, and the tiny little point means less than, and the greater than is the open, wider part of it. And so if you're in the moment and you're like the alarm goes off and you want to start to go to the gym and you're like, "Oh, I think I'd rather sleep an extra half an hour." So then you ask yourself, which is more important? 30 minutes of sleep or feeling energetic all day or
Mm,
living longer. If it's related to I want to live to 100, 30
yeah,
minutes of sleep or an extra 20 years on my life, if I work out all the time or whatever it is. And
right.
that's what the greater than sign does. It gets you to realize that you're making choices every day, even if you don't realize it, based on your priorities, you know? So, which is more important, calling a friend and that you haven't spoken to in forever, or watching Netflix?
Mhm.
Which is more important? You just keep asking yourself, which is greater than, which is more of a priority to you. And usually it has to do with a core value. Once again, I found a lot of things in life have to do with that. So I use it as a speed bump in my day.
Mm,
I find myself like wanting to do something, that's impulsive, but not necessarily what's best for me. Because in the book, I talk about what Aristotle calls hedonia and eudaimonia, which is pleasure and true happiness. So
Mm.
Aristotle also said, and this has to do with Stoicism too, that another reason why people are so unhappy is that they confuse pleasure for happiness, and
Ooh,
pleasure is
yes.
hedonia, and that's impulse driven. This is like the hit and run joy, like eat a pint of ice cream, whatever it is.
All the instant gratification
Instant
moments, right? Not the long
gratification.
term. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Blurt that mean thing, send that mean text versus, so it's sort of another way to describe it is hedonia or pleasure is enjoy now, struggle more later. And true happiness is struggle a little now, enjoy a lot more later. And so we have these moments which we choose. Many of them we don't notice because we're so busy. And what the greater than sign does is speed bump to slow down and get you to think, which is more important, the enjoy now and then struggle more later, or the struggle a little now and enjoy more later of it. And it reminds you of what the enjoy more later is.
Right.
So in the moment, sleep an extra 30 minutes, enjoy now, and struggle more later is I'm going to be tired or I won't be as healthy and thereby I won't maybe live as long, which is very important to me. I have a son, I want to live, I promised him I live to 100. So I'm doing everything I
I love that. And obviously you as a behavioral change expert knows this, like how exciting it is when you can make something that is good for you long term pleasurable in the moment, right? Like if you need to make the gym exciting, could you get excited to wake up and make yourself a cup of tea to, put in a to go thing on the way to the gym or something? I love the kind of hacking of that. Like, how do I bridge those gaps? Could we talk about the marble jar?
Yes,
I gotta know about this exercise, and I have many
I have it
questions.
here.
What is the
I'll
marble
show you.
jar? So, if you wanna explain it, and then I have some questions about how it can impact us and our mindset.
Sure, sure, sure. So I believe that a lot of us are in a kind of denial that we're going to die. And it's not our fault. Our brains are kind of wired like that. There's something called terror management. We just really don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
But if you can bring your awareness to it in a way that feels like, I don't know, I'm going to use the word fun. Fun, you might be
Yes.
more likely to own that and make it real and sit with it and be around it. So, and in fact, oddly enough, people that are in professions that have to do with death, there's a lot of research that says that they're living more fulfilling lives. That once you embrace mortality awareness, you live more boldly, you live more authentically, you want to, because you realize you're aware that when you get to the end of your life, you want to be, as I say, good in deathbed, like feel good when you're on your death.
Yes. Makes so much
So
sense.
I started this a little bit ago. I counted how many months I have left to live if I live to 100.
Okay.
And well, right now I'm 64. I'm going to be 65 in August. And so I forgot how many marbles I got when I started this, but it was about 430 marbles
Okay.
that I have 430 months left to live. So 430 marbles. So a marble for each month I have left to live.
Wow.
And it was really weird because I ordered 500 marbles in bulk. And then when they came, I had immediately remove like 70 marbles.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I don't even get to use all 500 marbles. It was like removing them was like, wow. But that's not what the exercise is about. That's just the added extra elbow in me, like, okay, Karen, make your months count, make them count. So
Yeah.
I bought 2 jars. This is the future where I have all of the marbles left to go. And this is my past marbles. And what I do is every month, the first of the month, I get a cup of coffee and a journal, and I take out a marble. And the first month I did this, it didn't go so well the first month because what happened was, and this is it just truly shows how we don't live very intentional lives a lot of the time.
Mm.
I took out my very first marble and I thought, this was last month. This is a little piece of my life. This little marble is a piece of my life. So I thought, what did I do with this piece of my life last month? And then I tried to remember what I did the prior month. And nothing was really coming up for me. I was thinking, I don't know, I had a dentist appointment. What? And I couldn't really think. And it was really surprising to me. I had to like reach, oh yeah, I had dinner with, but it wasn't as vivid in my mind.
Yeah.
So I took the marble, I plopped it into which was empty at the time, the past jar. And then I thought, okay, next month I'm going to do better. And I started to think about what I wanted to have happen in that month, get excited about some goals for that month. Like, oh, I'm going to visit my mom in Philadelphia, or oh, I started to plan things, go dancing to 80s music with my friend, or see a musical play with a different friend, and I started to get very intentional because the marble jar is sort of my accountability buddy. So I look at a marble, I think, okay, you're going to be my marble next month. I'm going to have some good stuff to tell you. And then, sure enough, the next month, woke up, first of the month, grabbed my coffee, and I knew what I did that month. It's like, yes, I did this, I did that. And then I plopped it into the past jar. And now when I look at these, I think, oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember I did this. I remember that. It's like almost like a memory keeper. And I
Yes.
usually keep these in my kitchen. And every time I walk into the kitchen, I'm reminded, and it's usually by the window. It looks very pretty, so it doesn't look morbid. It's very pretty. And the other thing it does, when I keep them in the kitchen is I think about that. I promised my son I would live to 100, and it's a behavioral change tweak on my brain too, because then I think, do I really want to eat that ice cream? Got
Right.
marbles to live up to. I want to
Yeah.
live to 100, and they're kind of staring over at me. So it kind of works
I
for
love it.
health reasons too.
Yeah, you've, like, replaced the cookie jar with the marble jar. I love the visual, and it reminds me of, my husband and I were trying to get into the habit of going on more dates, and there's the date jar kinda suggestion from a lot of, relationship therapists and stuff, and so did something similar where we put a little jar on our mantle of all the different dates that we wanted to do, and
Oh, I love that.
we could pull one out, and then we didn't have to think about, like, "What should we do tonight? What do we do?" And what was nice is that it became a habit, and so we didn't really need the visual jar anymore, and now we keep
Ah,
ideas on, like, my phone or his phone, and I think that is also very cool is, like, if you are a visual person and you need that as a habit builder, and now, of course, it's just a fun thing to always have around, that is such a good tip for using it in a lot of different ways, that visual reminder for us. Now, let's say that somebody is using the marble technique and it's not having the effect that you would hope that they would have the way that it's helped you. Maybe it's making them feel like their perfectionism is really ramped up because they feel like, they didn't do as much as they could have last month, or every time
mm,
they put a marble away, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna be dead soon." Like, what if it's invoking fear and perfectionistic
ah.
tendencies? Is there a way to adjust the marble situation?
I gave a group coaching session on some of my mortality tools, and some of the women were like, I don't know if I want to do the whole jar. So I told them we changed it to get pebbles, really pretty pebbles, and just do 1 month at a time. What's your goal for that 1 month? And start. And so they bought, and I have photos of it. They show me photos, just like 30 pebbles in a dish. And it's like it would be sitting out like potpourri or something. No, no, they did for a year. I'm trying to remember what they did. Um, it must have been 12 months. I mean, I can look at the photos. It must have been 1 year at a time. That's what they did.
Mm.
And they had just this little dish with some marbles. So they didn't look at it for their whole life. They did it, especially since you're younger than me, you would really need.
Let's hope. I feel like marble sales are gonna go up after this episode. You're the sole person keeping them alive.
It's funny, I wrote about it on Substack. I have a Substack called The Stand Up Philosopher. And so many people wrote underneath, I'm starting my marble jar, I'm starting my marble jar. It really wakes you up. Like you really see your life literally slipping through your fingers. It's like,
Yeah.
and to, and then you also think, is this worth a marble? Is this worth even
Ooh,
like for like
yes.
daily thing like resentment, is this worth a piece of my life? Really?
I love that. Yeah, that's so true. It can work on like, what do I wanna do this month and what do I not wanna do? Because this marble is really important. That is so cool. And I know somebody had talked about some kind of tally mark system for the number of times they're likely to see their family again because they all live in different states. How
Oh,
how many
yeah.
times left that they're all gonna be together in the same room, or how many times are left that they're gonna see their parents? And once you have something like that, that is a pretty accurate guess. If that doesn't kick your ass, I don't know what will, because those moments are incredibly limited if people are far apart.
Math wakes you up. Math wakes you up. I do
Right.
that. I am being 64, I only have 36 more summers left. Like, that's
Wow. Yeah.
a big slap at me, like, I'm gonna make this summer count, you know?
Right.
And with older parents too, with my mom or even with younger kids, like if you think they're only living with you basically for 18 years, so you could say, I only have 18 winters with them at home with me, or I only have like that makes you want to make the most of your time with the people that you love.
Absolutely. You have a section in your book, and I'm so glad that you've put this in there about people who feel like they're too late to do something that they want to do,
Um,
or they're too old, or what's the point? Can you share some words of wisdom for people who are feeling like that right now, like their life has already kind of passed them by?
well, I have a whole chapter. It's never too late to rejigger your life. And I'm a big believer in that. And I talk a lot about is no end date on new beginnings. There's no like referee gonna call you out like I'm sorry,
Right. You're
you
not
can't.
allowed. That's the
Yeah,
last toy you get to play with.
exactly. So I talk about the late bloomers that are out there that we know about, like Grandma Moses, painter, but even in current life. In fact, nowadays it's really good to look for those stories, look for those people. You can Google it, whatever it is. There's so many stories of people out there doing it. But what I have is I have a bunch of tools to help you to do it. One is like to find a partner in crime, somebody that can be your accountability buddy to do things. But instead of stealing money, you're stealing time from your schedule to do the things that you want to do together.
Yeah.
They're your partner in crime. Another one is to swap passions. Like if there's something you can do, if you can cook, but they can do yoga, like to have each other swap their passions. Another one is I have people just do things in 15-minute chunks to get started. I have like 20 tools in there for that. And in general, I do think as you get older, you think to yourself, which am I more afraid of? I guess it's the greater than sign again. Which am
Yeah.
I more afraid of? Doing this thing, learning to tango, or getting to the end of my life and regretting that I didn't live with more bravery, and do these
Right.
things. And you're more aware of that. And the more you think about death, the less you're afraid to take a risk because you are really excited to create a life that you're proud of. And
Mhm.
so fear changes.
Going back to somebody's at that, I'm just using an example. One part of them wants to live in that other country. One part wants to stay here with their partner, and they feel like, well, both paths could be good. Do you find that just finding a happy medium is usually a good place to start? What would it be like if you traveled to that country for a while on a trip and you came back? Does it
Yeah.
have to be all or nothing?
I call them sampler size courage bites, where you try,
Yeah.
like, go on a trip to that country, see how it feels. My mom, after my dad passed away, my mom was in her 70s. Um, I helped her write her dating profile with my mom's Cyrano de Bergerac. And I found her a new boyfriend who she's been with for like 20 something years. Never too late for new beginnings. And
Oh, that's so
it's
good.
mindset. If you think I'm too old, identity is your destiny. Identity is the puppet master of your habits. So the first thing that I would want somebody to do is to change their identity of I'm too old. You're not too old. I'm young in spirit. I am worthy of love. Whatever it is that you can find that is an identity, that's the antithesis of whatever's getting you stuck.
Right. I love that. I think we can overwhelm ourselves thinking that I got to do something big, move to this, this other place and start a nonprofit. I got to whatever it is. But you kind of talk about these tiny legacies as well.
Those little mini legacies, that's what they are. The people, you can do something, you could just mentor somebody, or, there's ways that you could leave ripples out in the world without it being really huge, huge, like curing cancer, or, just being known for being kind, or for teaching someone to cook a recipe that you love, or, just being there for a friend to listen to them or give them a pep talk. Those will be the stories that people are going to remember, and the meaningful moments. And they're usually related to core values.
Right.
You were
Absolutely.
loving, because you were patient, because you were motivational, whatever it is, it usually backs into a core value somewhere.
I love just the simple example of like, yeah, you see, a barista, somebody having a tough day, and instead of like, "Oh, okay, well, they're not in a good mood. I'm not going to talk to them," just saying, "Oh, rough day, huh?" Just
Yes.
little things like that where somebody feels,
Yes.
yeah, I'm being acknowledged, right? Like I'm not alone.
Yes.
Those tiny little moments are, yeah, so important. I guess my final question for you, because I love it so much, and I think it started me off on a whole new trajectory for my life, is removing the excess physical stuff, the decluttering, like you said, like the Swedish
Um,
death cleaning. What made that important for you to do in your life and to also put in this book?
um, I write about, I did a Swedish death cleaning, and what it does is it sort of makes you aware of all the different yous you've been to lead up to the you that you are now.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps you to see the pattern in your life and how much you've grown and changed, and to own that. And I even have another tool in the book, chronological mapping, where you look at your life like that too and see the pattern. It helps you have closure on some
Ooh.
things. But back to the Swedish death cleaning, um, to touch all those different parts of your life is really beautiful, and to make peace and to get rid of and say, this is now part of my past. I'm looking forward to what's to come. The best is yet to come. But the other reason is also, you want to do it for your loved ones. You want to make sure that, so many people avoid thinking about end of life preparation, like,
Mhm.
guess what, and if you don't,
Right.
your loved ones to discover your old journals,
Right.
but it was really interesting to look through those things and to see, like, who I used to be, like, even some of my clothes. Like, when I was younger, I used to wear really, like, these high-heeled shoes that were just about pain and torture, and wasn't really accepting who I was on some level. And
Yeah.
I seeing those, I'm like, I don't do that anymore. I'm like all about comfort, and it
Yes.
shouldn't be painful like that, and just being me and self-accepting of me. And that was a reminder, and kind of like sending love to that young me who was standing in stilts all the time.
Right. Such good points. This was so enjoyable. I just want to give you an opportunity if there's anything that you want to leave people with that we didn't touch on today. And then where can people find you, your work, all that good stuff?
Thank you. You are so much fun to talk to.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
so, okay, well, something that I didn't mention is that I have a quiz on my site, which is about what's your vitality age. This is a little bit with, it's
Ooh.
never too old to rejigger your life. And
Yeah.
that's, we talk about chronological age, the age on your birth certificate, and then biological age, which would be something that your doctor would tell you. But there's also something called your vitality age, which I made up again.
Love it.
Because I was thinking about it. I was thinking there should be this third thing, because I feel like I'm young in spirit, I'm young in vitality, and
Yeah.
still got a lot of life force in me. Like, I still have screenplays to write, things to do, countries to visit. And that is so important as you get older, to make sure you're maintaining a very youthful vitality age. And it actually links back into longevity. The younger your vitality age, it probably improves your biological age too.
Yeah.
So I have people think about where they are in their vitality age and then give them some tips to help them to improve their vitality age. I have a quiz on my website, and my website is you're-to-die-for-life.com, like the title of my book. And I have some other things there. I have a free end of life planner there called Over My Dead Body.
I
You can
love you. I love you so much. Yes.
and it's totally free. So that's on my you're-to-die-for-life.com site. And then my name is Karen Salmansohn. Everybody mangles it and they say Salmonson, Salmonson. So I'm always saying, not salmon, not salmon. So on social media, I'm not salmon, like not the bit. On Instagram, Facebook, even Substack. It's substack.com/not salmon. So, and then I have a second website, notsalmon.com, which is about all my other behavioral change stuff and books that I've written before this one.
All right, everybody, you can check out Karen's new book, You're to Die for Life: How to Maximize Joy and Minimize Regret Before Your Time Runs Out. It's available anywhere books are sold. And I'm going to go get my marble jar situated over here. So hope you have a good rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon. So glad you tuned into Self-Helpless. If you want to go deeper into this topic, check out the list of related conversations linked in today's episode's description. Feel free to share the podcast with anyone who may appreciate the variety of things we discuss here. And if you don't want to miss notifications about new episodes, you can subscribe to Self-Helpless wherever you enjoy podcasts. You can also head to selfhelplesspodcast.com for some free goodies like the Quotable Buffet, the Watch and Read list, and more. All right, love you big time, and thank you so much.